So where did we go wrong? Like, I'm sure it was slow. It's
got to be that term limit things, because imagine 20 years ago when like Hillary Clinton was a senator and some of these other, like when Nancy Pelosi was, not dead and like, the Pharaoh and being wheeled out like the...
She was in her 70s 20 years ago, right?
There were literally like thousands of years collectively amongst House and senators. So we got to go back, but think about this. Most of the time before Reagan and stuff like that, it was mostly controlled by Democrats, right? Historically, the House and the Senate for a long time. Maybe not after the Civil War. After the Civil War, you had the influence of Southern Republicans, a lot of them black folks that became elected officials, went to D.C., and then that slowly changed, unfortunately. But I think in between the end of the Civil War and probably World War I is where we got to the point where maybe that of no return. We're all talking here like this is salvageable. And if you talk to the average person in West Virginia, they're like, this is gone. And I even was talking to my wife about this. I said, this experiment of freedom may be over. And we might be like, think about a dying tree, right? You've got some branches that are still alive. They look healthy, but the tree itself is dead. And that's the scary question we have to ask ourselves, and why so many people, like, what is it? On Drudge, it said the other day, 41% said we're headed to a civil war. Maybe I'm not a worst case scenario. I'm like a Jim Kirk kind of guy. There is no way to fail if we believe that we can succeed. Like the no win solution, I don't believe in that. I don't know if you're going to be able to point to one politician, but I think there was just a gradual disrespect of the rule of law and the awe of what America stood for, and that you probably could find a starting point. But I think the only way back is term limits and really saying no. So you get about 5 to 7 senators in there that can basically, as I said months ago somewhere, it's like one of my YouTube videos, say no to everything, and then the lights are turned off, and it's like, let's have a discussion to turn them back on in D.C. Like, that's really what it needs to come to. Is we need to debate whether every penny is a function of the federal government or not. Yeah. And we don't have to start over, because the Constitution isn't flawed. It's the people. Yeah. If you make term limits the rule for everybody, including judges, and then we need to debate whether all these agencies. Now, some of them are necessary. I want the scariest, meanest military there is. I want a good CIA. I want a good, special forces, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to know what's going on when you were looking at enemies outside the United States. When you get to like these FISA courts and all this other crap that's looking at Americans, whether we're not a threat to national security, we're a threat to the government. And that's
like Loudoun County with the parents coming against the school government.
Oh, it's crazy.
It was the parents. They weren't a threat to society. They were a threat to the government.
It was the guy whose daughter had been raped, and they were putting she had either been raped or assaulted by one of these kids that pretended to be a girl but was a boy. Yeah. And my solution to that is the girls need to start getting together and just beating the crap out of the boy in the gym and in the locker room, so that he's sliding out on his hands and knees to the competition.
Yeah, but you know what would happen?
What?
They get held liable, because that's considered a hate crime.
Well, yeah, but if he just slipped and fell. No, I'm serious. Like, if I'm that kind of a bad boy, that I would have like come up with if I was a girl, I would have been like, listen, ladies, this is what we're gonna do. And this person just
kiss and tell.
Yeah, I would a little bed sheet over that guy's head.
Starting. Riley Gaines has started a semi movement.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see, and you need to just have people that are willing to stand up, and we are willing to stand up, and every day we get someone new that starts reaching out to us.
Yeah, you won't believe the people who said, listen, after you did your podcast and after some of the people that have been in the system for 30 years made comments about you, We just changed our vote because of that.
That's good.
And we're gonna, which is good. But I have the solution. I know where it all went wrong. Okay. The McRib. The McDonald's McRib sandwich. That is so. It
always comes
when
to
it started with the McRib.
I love that sandwich.
That's where it all started.
As long as you get enough sauce.
Well, that's the problem. The more sauce they put on, the more sweet we are, and it just messes the things up. That's where it started. I'm just.
Oh man, I'm a big griller.
So let's wrap it up. Yeah. But let's bring it around back to your campaign.
Okay.
I want a final, because we're in early voting now.
Elevator speech.
We're in early voting now, but next week,
May 14th,
is the vote.
Yeah.
I like what you're saying.
Agreed.
But give me a final that'll just push it over the top, the cherry on top of the whipped cream.
Do you have a dance you can do for the? I'm just kidding.
My wife actually taught a dance class that I took before we got together.
No way.
Yeah.
Did
ballroom
you take
dancing.
it to be near her?
No, I didn't.
She made you. You can tell us. It's just us guys here.
I think a friend of mine asked me to go. And so, but I'm not a very good dancer. She is. Now my kids are like, I'm the guy who goes to, I'm much better than the Elaine when you go to the I can go to the club, and all my kids can too. They've got dad's dancing moves, not mom. So
I'm. Do you bite your bottom lip when you dance?
I'll tell you what, I really would rather be somewhere else right now. Like, I got 6 kids at home. I'd rather be on the couch watching a movie.
That makes us feel good.
No, but saying that, the reason I decided to run,
other tire's going to go flat now,
is I realized what the government's not only done to us, and that pisses me off, but it enrages me that they basically sold my children's future out to China.
Yeah.
And they will, the debt that they owe is so enormous.
Ridiculous.
And the freedom, the shell of freedom that they have, that was originally the idea of America, is gone. And I'm trying to teach my oldest daughter that most women in this world are either slaves or servants. And I see us marching as a country to absolute tyranny. And I've been around other countries, I've studied history, and I'm really worried about, we're right there where if we keep going, you can't ever come back. If this country falls apart, you're going to have little sections. How are we ever going to come back from that? Like, united as a people again. We really need to, make America great again by what we are rather than government, right? And I just think that we need honorable elected officials who understand their role is to be guardians of freedom rather than spenders of money. And when I looked at Jim Justice and Alex Mooney, I saw two. We're all flawed. None of us are perfect. But I saw 2 people that were so diametrically opposed to a free future for my children that I said, look, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to raise some hell and let people know that there is another way to do this. And I didn't have the money. I didn't have the ability to go out and meet everybody and get my name out the way I really hoped. But I'm really hoping that people just in general go out and look at the candidates, because I think it's really hard not to vote for what me as a candidate when you realize that I'm just saying what you believe. Limited government, term limits, leave my paycheck alone, support our military, and that's really about it. And let us just be free, rather than spending all our money. And so if you want somebody who's like you'd want, to be in a foxhole with, that'd be me. But like, I'm not gonna go out and I'm not going to DC to make money, because this would be like a pay cut for me. I mean, I have 6 kids and I've got bills, so I'm not a rich guy, by far. Like I'm paycheck to paycheck as well. But between 3 jobs, I make a little bit more than a congressman, a senator, and I don't really want that job. But here's the thing: most of the great people that I meet, like you guys, would be great as a congressman or senator. But you've got families, you've got jobs, you've got other things, and I think that quote from "much is given, much is expected." Well, I kind of feel like God has put this on my heart and said, you've got to do this, or I'm not going to let you alone. Like, this is, to me, it is really God's calling that said, because I dreamt about it, like, over and over and over, and it was like, you're really calling me. And if, think, and I've thought a lot about what George Washington had to go through as a general during my campaign. And knowing that, like, when he went in on Christmas Day into Trenton, he had like 750 guys that were half dead.
Yeah.
No shoes on. Like, that blood trail. And everything went wrong that day. And that was like one of those little events in our history that if it had gone the other way, we would still be slaves to the crown. But even saying that, we are now more slaves to the federal government than we ever were under the British crown. And that sickens me.
I keep saying that. It's like they want this levy to pass, but we revolted over a 2% T-tax.
T-tax, yeah. And then
where did those people go?
We petitioned the king to treat us as Englishmen, but then he doubled down. He tripled down because he's like, no, you're going to buy my tea. And then there's this great miniseries on History Channel that you can get called Sons of Liberty. If you haven't watched it, you need to. Because there's this great scene at the end, and Sam Adams is in front of the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. And they haven't voted on whether they want to go to war. And he was a rebel rouser. He was a drunk and a ladies' man. He gets up there, and he's like, I'm all these things, and I admit it, but I'm much more. I'm a patriot. And he said, but to the crown, I am nothing. And I've used that in some of my speeches. I said, and we don't even have the right under the crown to like ask, should we be free? And so like what we want to be in our own lives or as a country. And it's on YouTube. It's an amazing clip. You got to watch this because you just type in Sam Adams and then speech.
Keep talking.
On Sons of Liberty. So Sons of Liberty, Sam Adams speech. And you'll see that. And really, I've come to understand that we are nothing to the federal government because if we were, they would never have dared tax us so much, taking away our freedoms. They would be our humble servants. When you go to a nice hotel and you've got the greeter, that's what the elected official be like. Like, how can I make your life better by leaving you alone? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, we don't say that here.
Yeah,
we ask that question. It's such a mindset, and I'm 100% agree with you. Yeah. I mean, it just.
Matter of fact, we'll play that speech at the end of the podcast.
Well, we'll another great quote is if you go to termlimits.com, there's quotes about term limits. The first one is from John Adams, and he goes, "I've joined the House of Representatives to my own like despair or like." What is it? I'm trying to remember the word. But he talks about, to my own ruin. He said, to my own ruin, your ruin, to my family's ruin, and my grandchildren's ruin, because he understood there was so much power to being in Congress, to becoming a king. Remember, the whole world thought that Washington would be a king. They could have been after the war. But he said, no. I said, I will just... He didn't even want to be president, but he knew he had to because nobody else would step up. And the day he retired from his second term, the King of England was quoted saying, there is the greatest man who ever lived because he gave up all that power.
Yeah.
And that's what we need, that mindset again, the people that go in there and they're like, I have to be so humble. How dare I spend a penny of your money or do anything against your liberty for fear of my own damnation? And that's the kind of person I am, is that because I've lived and had to make money to support myself and family, and I know what it is to have had a lot and then had nothing, and I know what freedom is, and I have that, it's in my heart. Like, I wouldn't want to do anything to you that I wouldn't want done to myself. And if I got elected as a senator, it's not an honor. It's a great burden, I think, on the soul, like that you would have to carry around. And I don't even know if I'd want to be more than one term because it's that fear of corruption, that weight, walking around looking at the statues and saying, before there was that corruption that we live in now, there was this sense of awe that this is the greatest thing that's ever happened, other than Jesus, to the human race, is the ability for men to live free. Because every other experiment of freedom has failed throughout human history.
I still think the McRib was the second most, besides Jesus, the best thing. Anyway, so
no, that's a great sandwich.
Can you tell I eat at McDonald's a lot?
I like the McRib too, but it's gotta have good sauce. So that's just kind of like the kind of person I am, and I'm always gonna think to myself, whenever a bill comes up, is that the function of government? Mm-hmm. And I'll probably rewrite a bill, make it one page, and then if that's not good enough for them. But to know that my sitting congressman is the kind of person who thinks, okay, it's my duty to give money to other countries, that's wrong.
Yeah.
And if my kids can get on the internet, type their name, type in Alex Mooney, and within the first 2 or 3, start to seeing all the cronyism and the investigation that he's under right now, that's wrong. We don't need those kind of people in there. And thank him for being pro-life and pro-gun and not technically raising our taxes, but by goodness, he needs to go and work a real job. That would be what a gift to him to fire him for he had to go and flip burgers work in the private sector away from politics to relish his next paycheck and then be like, oh my gosh, I get half. What are these people doing? Oh, I was one of those people. And then I've been like, oh my gosh, the wake ups to him. But again, if he doesn't win, he's going to work for one of these big think tanks, make 6 figures a year, and then he might run again. That's just the world he lives in.
Do some public appearances.
And it's just instead, we need those humble people, but we really need that term limits, I think. That'll be half of it. The other half, we the people, will do a better job of electing people, because we know that if you open up a calendar, if this person we didn't like gets elected, there's a day that they're gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, we term limit our executives, but not a legislature.
Well, but here's the thing I'm going to say about elections, because we're coming up.
Yeah.
We as the people can still have term limits.
Yeah.
We determine who's voted back in.
I know.
And so I agree with what you're saying. We shouldn't have a choice. It should be something that they have to get out. But, we've talked about the issue even locally. People are in it forever.
I know.
And forever. But we as the people can vote them out. And we've tried to bring transparency and light to, hey, these are the decisions they're making on your behalf. These are the dollars they're spending of yours. These are the more. Yeah. So we the people can do that. But I'm not saying that I don't agree with what you're saying. Yeah. I think we need term limits, but we've been saying, hey, listen, wait a minute. We're voting. Every person, rich or poor, living on the mountain. Their vote matters the same. It doesn't matter. Fair, every vote's the same.
Now, the only thing I'll come back with you was statistics show that 90% chance of re-election if you're an incumbent.
Oh, yeah. Big.
Just shows you that a lot of people, they vote, or there's such a low turn. This is supposed to be a low turnout year. So you've got all of their supporters. I mean, if you know Jim Justice and he hasn't done something good for you, people loathe him. Same with Mooney. Like, people just come up to me and they're like, oh, they scare me, or anybody. But I'm like, what has this guy done to you? I often ask them, they just laugh and they're like, well, this and that. And I'm like, wow, there's real hatred from a lot of these people towards their elected official. And, but, like, you get elected. And that's the.
I'm not disagreeing with you on term limits. What I'm saying is because until that's done, we the people can. You're right. Incumbents have a large percent. I don't disagree with that.
They know them. They're already in there.
Or they're voting. In the general, they're voting for the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, which is true.
Yeah, and I hate to say it. Look at New England. It used to be Republican everywhere. But then the Republicans got squishy, and now they're like, well, we'll just vote for the Democrats because they'll give us stuff, and they were going to vote the same way as these Republicans that were liberal anyways. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really fear, that if we don't fix things in West Virginia, we're going to become a blue state again in the next decade. Hardcore. Because when I turn around and I see, like, Zach Shrewsbury doing all this stuff for the people, I'm like, man, if I have nothing, and this guy comes in with truckloads of water and food and jackets and shoes, that's the guy I'm going to vote for. Not every time I turn on the TV, open a newspaper and see all these Republicans giving money to Bill Gates, like, why would you vote for that anymore? I think the Republican Party in this state is so rotten that, and it's so rigged. They wouldn't even. I reached out to get the voter information, so I started reaching out to people. They never gave it to me. Hemmed and hawed, and you'll get it tomorrow, and they selectively, all these endorsements. Well, hopefully a lot of these people wake up and say, the people with the endorsements are the ones I don't want because that's the swamp.
It happens.
And I did a little research on the swamp, which you would consider like the Mitch McConnells and the Mitt Romneys. All those people get the NRA and usually National Right to Life endorsement. It's all the other spending that is horrible for this country, why we don't like them. Because we're all feeling that. We hate our government officials. We don't like them. That's why. It's not because they're voting to take away our Second Amendment or for abortion, for free for all. It's everything else they do, right? But they all get these great endorsements. West Virginia, concealed carry league and all this other stuff. And we just have to start. We do need to educate ourselves better. But that's the problem with living in a free society where we're not at risk like the Israelis. What's our risk? Illegals from the south and Canadian geese from the north. And when you have that kind of sheltered world where it doesn't really matter if you vote, you're not going to wake up dead the next day. We take it for granted. Yeah. And what is it? Peace makes men soft. Men makes people, men strong and hard, but we've been such peaceful times for the most part that we are really soft. And that being said, I'm really surprised at how many educated voters I'm seeing in West Virginia. So I know 6 out of 10 haven't made up their minds on the Senate race. So those people listening, their vote could matter. And I think, maybe justice is the mountain I can't climb. But if I can stop Mooney from getting elected, I think I've done a great thing because all his corruption is while he's been a congressman. 90% of what's wrong with justice is in his private life.
You just don't want to pay.
The only stuff I have been told that from his corruption and as governor is I've been told he took payoffs from the former energy people. That people walked into his office with briefcases full of money for his support with the Bill Gates thing. And I've heard that him and some other people who got those briefcases, I always ask, where's my briefcase? But this is from reliable sources that apparently FBI started looking at that a little bit. But, that's not going to go anywhere. Probably. Every time I talk about how a politician's going to get their just deserves to my wife, she gets pissed off. She's they're never going to get in trouble. Yeah, it's true. And it's sad because if you and I did that stuff, we'd be in prison right now. Yeah. And I'm like, that's just crazy. So I will tell you this. If I've come up with this idea, and hopefully it'll stick. If I do not end up being successful on Tuesday, I plan to do something like what you guys are doing and going out because I have a little bit more time as a traveling salesman, going out and doing podcasts under the Death to Taxes, maybe Radio Free West Virginia, because I like to run again for the same site, and really just going out to the local businesses in each county and really getting my name out, but letting the people know that they matter, like going to the tow shop repair place and doing a podcast of tell me about your business, tell me about what your big hurdles are with government, because that's what they want to talk about. That's what the biggest threat to them. It's not China and Bill Gates, it's the taxes and the regulations. If you really want to have some great podcasts in the future, go to the towing companies, car repair places, because they know what all the corruption is, and involving with law enforcement and stuff like that, pay to play for towing and stuff is huge corruption scandal. And I was telling this one person in Berkeley Springs,
we were talking about that 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
There's this company in Berkeley Springs, I can't name the name. But they were telling me all about it, and they used to have big wreckers, and they had to sell them to Maryland because every time they would show up, the police would turn them away because they weren't on their list of top 4 favorites. I said, if I become a senator, that's my first stop. Day one, I'll stop. I will go to that police, that state trooper's barracks, and then I'll come back, get the names from you, who it was. I'll walk in there as a senator, and I'll say, this ends today, or I'll bring 500 reporters and out you tomorrow. this games, they're done. Like, that's the kind of person I am.
It almost has to be done like that, grassroots. And what we're trying to do is just educate. Yeah. We have nothing against people personally. Yeah. Trust me.
Find out how to
educate.
Yeah, how do you educate? But part of that is exposing the corruption within the First Amendment and liability rules, and keeping yourself safe too, because I've been told stories that I can't repeat on the radio that would get me killed as a candidate. And my wife's like, yeah, you can't say that. I was like, that's right, because like, who's gonna believe me? But if they did, it's like they'll just take me out. I mean, I'll tell you one great story that I have no risk of getting in trouble with. Before Christmas, I'm in an event, and the people are drinking and having a good time, and I couldn't drink because I'd drive home, and somebody brought up Senator Byrd, and everybody started laughing, and a couple things were said, and I said, "You don't become the grand dragon of the KKK without killing somebody." Whole room went silent, and the guy standing next to me goes, "He killed this guy, and this guy's in prison for it." And everybody was like, "Yep," and they all knew it. The whole county said everybody knows it. And I said, "Oh my God," that was like the first time I really understood how much the corruption goes. But he's a gentleman, and there are people that might be listening to this podcast that really had a good thought about him. And just because you're a gentleman doesn't mean that you're not a racist pile of dung, because I've also heard how he's treated people from other people, and it's just crazy.
And but just remember, our president now spoke at his funeral.
But yeah, and what was he a senator for? 40 or 51 years?
Oh yeah, it was a long time. Yeah.
So and speaking of that, like
longest one.
So if Mooney gets elected, he's been in office 22 years. He'll be at 28 years when his first term's over. You think he'll serve a single term? No, he'll serve 3 or 4 terms. And now he'll be in there for 50 years, and he's part of the problem, part of the swamp. But he'll keep getting reelected because he's pro-life and pro-gun, and people are like, oh, he's so conservative.
Yeah.
Except when he comes to $60 billion to Ukraine, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's got to be an addiction, because that power and that money, because who'd want to stand around in that filth for that long?
You get that, the adulation, the power, that it's just like,
true,
this is nice.
Yeah.
So
well, before you end, I did vote for you today. So
voting
starts
early
started.
bird.
And I want your vote, man.
I
appreciate
definitely.
That.
You got it. Definitely. I always go the day of. Yeah. It's just my wife and I go after work together, and it's kind of our family thing.
I went before my wife, hoping that my votes would offset her votes.
Yeah, this is her first election to vote for.
Yeah, that's true.
She became a U.S. citizen. So
I'm not, I'm excited to wake up on Wednesday morning and see what happens, but I think it's not going to go the way. If I come in third, that'd be great. I think if I get over 20,000 votes, it would be kind of my way of having enough ammunition to run again and just be like, hey, I got to start now, right? Yeah. Rather than wait till the very end.
Yeah.
You said you felt God told you to run, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But God didn't tell you were going to win.
No, he didn't.
Right?
He just said, and it's not about winning. It's about doing the right thing.
Correct. Yeah. But keep that in mind. There's stuff, and we're telling our mother that. There's stuff that you're showing people, and people are learning to be more wise. So that can be part of why God had wanted you to run. It's because you're going to bring light, and when you turn on light, what happens to the cockroaches? They all run, right?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, which is true. We're finding that ourselves in a small county. But so what you're doing is, even if you don't win, I'm hoping you do, obviously. There's still something that you did, and that you continue to do to make sure that we can get stuff to be more effective.
I'm not sorry I won. I mean, it was a financial burden, and it was a sacrifice. It was fun meeting a lot of new people, and I've got one more event Friday that I'm going to, but it's important. Liberty is important, and I was always one of those people that sat back and watched, and my head's been in the sand raising kids, and so people ask me, do you know this person? I don't. And that's really, I think, is what you want is, you almost don't want to know who your congressman and senator is because there's such turnover. Like, I don't know the guy's name, but he's only been there for one term. He can only be there for one more, and then he or she's gone. That would be really, like, they'll give you confidence that, like, the system's fair.
Yeah.
Then people say, oh, then you just get the bureaucrats. You know how hard it is to buy a congressman in the beginning if you're a lobbyist, and then you got to get a whole new slate. And people, well, how are you not going to get bought? Well, I'm going to have a little camera, in my office, if I get elected, if you're a lobbyist, you come in and say, you're live on Facebook. Let's have a conversation. You're going to be a lot different than if you had...
Transparency.
Yeah, you're going to be like, well, I don't have to buy this guy. Now I got to work. I got to do my job. Yeah. I got to work and sell you my message.
It's true.
As a salesman. And you got to do your work. And rather than here's a briefcase or here pictures of you and this girl and whatever. You know, if you can't be bought, then they can either get rid of you or they can just work hard to get their message across. And hopefully that's what we get more and more of. And there's some really good candidates. I mean, I'm glad I'm not running for some of these offices, but I'll tell you what, it's going to be hard for me to pick a... Can I ask you who voted for governor?
Hold on here. Now you're asking me a question. It wasn't Capito. Moore. Capito Moore?
No, I don't. Is he running for governor?
Yeah. I was with him the next day.
Who were on governor?
So Mac Warner, you got Chris Miller, you got Casey Christian, who I've become friends with. He's the coal miner.
So I've not heard that person at all.
You should look him up. Okay. And then you've got Patrick Morrissey, which is probably the favorite.
It was Patrick Morrissey. That's what.
Chris Miller. Yeah. Morrissey's done a lot for the state. He's just a big government guy. I'm worried that he's going to spend too much and not put the government on a dime.
They got that surplus there that they're just itching to spend.
Well, yeah, so the surplus should come back to us.
Yeah.
But, you know,
true.
$300 million went to Form Energy, and then I've actually asked...
Okay, so I wondered, because
we went from
John Paul Hott... I interviewed him, and this was when they were trying to push. They wanted no tax, no property tax at all. I think it was, or no. It was either no sales tax, something.
It went back and forth. Yeah.
And because he's like, we have a $1 billion surplus.
Yeah.
Well, this year I find out we're down to $500 million already, and I was like, where did that go? Just like that, so $300 million, right there.
Yeah.
I would explain where.
Where did it go?
I actually asked if we could get that money back. From some of these candidates, they're like, no, but we're kind of like babysitting and doing our due diligence. And I'm like, you know what I would have done? That would have cost us no money. I would have gone to Honda and like Toyota and Ford and said, we want to make 500,000 diesel and gasoline trucks people want to buy in West Virginia next 5 to 10 years. And we want to sell the lead acid. We're going to build and sell the lead acid batteries that run those things and the gas, you know, because we got the coal to make the steel to make the vehicles. That would boost our economy because you don't need even a high school diploma to work some of that job line.
Yeah.
Instead, all these jobs with Form Energy are being advertised in Ohio and Pennsylvania because they're not finding the skilled labor they need in West Virginia. And that's sad because they've made all these promises.
That sounds like that has something to do with our school system.
That's right.
Education.
Because all the kids that learn anything are leaving.
Our school system, they're doing bad. We're going to get...
Well, I will tell you this. As time goes on, people come up to me and they're like, oh, I don't like the homeschooling because it really puts pressure. I'm like, well, I like experimenting with freedom. Why don't we take a couple counties and privatize the school system for 10 years and compare the progress?
Just do this. Compare the homeschooled kids versus the public school kids.
Well, there's this thing on... Have you seen that commercial? On it's on Facebook, or it's a YouTube video where the parents are having a little powwow in the kitchen, and one of them is a homeschool. It's a homeschooled 7-year-old, and they asked the kids to come down one by one and talk about the Bill of Rights. And the public kids think it's all about business, and the girl comes down and she's got the whole thing like memorized, and they're like, stop. What does it mean? And then she's explaining it. And then the mom of the public school students are like, good job, everybody. And I was like, no, the public school students had no idea because they're learning world cultures. If the public school wants to be successful, if they want to have kids that want to work hard and love their country, they should be learning American history every year from kindergarten through graduation. I'm sorry, but we don't need to learn French history or South African history because we don't want to be like those people. There's nothing that they can provide us. America is where the freedom is at, and so get appreciation so that every time that national anthem is played, you understand why you take your hat off.
So I'll end on this story here. There was a lady I was talking to, and she homeschooled, and we actually used the same program, and it was nice talking. And she says, I don't know why, but for some reason she put her child back in public schools. Mm-hmm. And she goes, we found out she was 2 grades ahead. And she got bored.
Yeah.
And I think she might have been in for a year or 2.
Yeah.
Took her back out and was so far behind from just being in that year or 2 that they said it was a struggle to catch up. And I told her, I said it was the same thing with my daughter, who was only in public school and kindergarten. I thought she was doing great because she was getting, I think in kindergarten you get S's. Or, I can't remember what you get. Anyway.
That's right. Right.
And when we took her into first grade in homeschooling, oh my God, the first 6 weeks was like, we can't do this. This is too much. She's so far behind.
Yeah.
Now we're in the rhythm, and it's so I said, because K through 4 is the most important.
Laying the foundation.
You're laying the foundation. Reading, math. I mean, that's what you're learning. And if you don't learn it then, then when you get into high school, you're cooked.
The county
you're
really
cooked.
bad with this.
And I said they should take a good homeschool curriculum and bring that curriculum in and teach them this stuff.
Yeah.
They just, it was totally different from what they're learning. And I told my wife, because I do the homeschooling, the day part, my wife does the studying at night, so we tag team it. But I said, the stuff they're teaching, it's just, I don't know what it is, but I'll find my daughter going through naming every state and every capital like it's nothing. And I'm like, whatever they're doing is working.
Yeah.
Because she'll just be in there talking to herself, doing this, the presidents and all this. And I'm like, so I don't know if it's the curriculum. I don't know if it's the teachers. I don't know, but it's like, why can't we have an honest conversation and just look at our warts and say, let's fix this.
Nobody wants to admit that they've done things wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That things aren't working.
It takes a very secure person to be able to say, I messed up.
Yeah, we're on Titanic, and here's the iceberg, and we have plenty of time to move, but we're not like, it's not going to do any damage. It's the strongest ship ever,
We can shut down the schools for 2 years, and it won't hurt the kids at all.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, you've heard it. Now it's decision time. Go out, vote. Bryan McKinney, U.S. Senate. Check the box.
Wow, please do.
And for Explore, thank you for tuning in. We'll probably split this up for 3 and play them over the next 3 days so they get all of it. Yeah. So thank you for tuning in. Everyone, have a great evening.